with verse number 11 today. अफलाकाङ्क्षभिरज्ञो विधिदृष्टो य एज्यते यष्टवमेवेति मनः समाधाय स सात्विकाः. So the verse translates to the sacrifice offered by those desiring no fruit, as enjoined by the ordinance or by the scriptures, with mind well resolved that they should merely sacrifice, that is sattvic. Let's take this up word by word. Aphal, so that is without fruit. Phal is fruit. Aphal becomes no fruit. Akanksha bhi, desiring, those desiring. Yagya is sacrifice. Vidhidrishta, as the vidhi tells us, or the ordinances tell us. Yaha which ijyate is offered. Yashtvayam is what should be sacrificed. Ev only, iti thus, manha is mind, samadhyay is having well resolved, established, convinced. Sa that sattvic is, of course, the guna sattvic. So, the sacrifice offered by those desiring no fruit, as enjoined by ordinance, with mind well resolved, that they should merely sacrifice, that is sattvic. So, let's chant it together. अफलाकाङ्क्षभिरज्ञो विधिदृष्टो य एज्यते यष्टवयमेवेति मनः समाधाय स सात्विका. So, as is obvious, is that we are covering the sattvic yagya in this particular verse. So the fire worship ritual has been covered, has been recapped. The sacrifice is well resolved. That means you have a goal in front of you and you are performing the sacrifice towards that goal. However, you have no desire to gain the fruit therefrom. You are doing your obligatory action. So it is a desireless sacrifice with no motive. Now, this appears contradictory that if there is no desire, then why should we act? And very often, we also ourselves get confused. So, we have to understand that we will act. And why must we act? Because we have vasanas. So, now the question arises, what is a desireless sacrifice? That means we are doing only what is our obligatory duty in a particular situation. What is right, rational, correct act to be done at that point of time and expecting nothing in return. See, now I think I would like to bring this out with an example. So let's say your child or your grandchild comes to you and says that, I'm going for a social service, community service today. So you say, okay, fine. It's a good act. I mean, it's a beneficial act which serves the community and so on and so forth. However, the child has an exam tomorrow. So the mother comes and says that, have you prepared for the exam? So the child says no. Then she says no. Then you cannot go. You first prepare and then you join the activity. Because the obligatory duty at that point of time, the child's obligatory duty is that the person should be studying. If you have a person in who is hospitalized or and you need to attend to that person and you say no, I'm going for a Bhagwad Gita class, it doesn't work. It's not your obligatory duty at that point of time. We are always talking at that instant. So that is my obligatory duty whether I like it or not, and nothing is expected in return, in the sense that if I study, I'll come first or I'll get the first division, or if I'm attending to someone, that person will get well by the evening. There's no expectation. That is my duty I'm doing it, giving it the best, and expecting nothing in return. So, this is the sattvic sacrifice, which is what the scriptures tell us. I mean, so, our scriptures are continuously telling us to look after our parents, and that is our duty. And I was reading an article on, I think, either the CNN or the BBC, that when is the right time to disconnect with your parents. And I mean, I found the title itself slightly out of context, and definitely not as per our scripture. So, it's very interesting the way things go. So that was verse 11 on sattvic sacrifice. Moving on to verse 12. अभिसन्धाय तु फलं दम्भार्थमपि चैव यत् ईज्यते भरतश्रेष्ठः तं यज्ञं विधिराजसम्. So the sacrifice offered for fruit and ostentation, know it to be Rajasic, O best of Bharatas. Simple verse. Abhisandhyay, seeking for, to indeed. Phal is a fruit. Dambartham, for the sake of ostentation. Api also, cha and ev even, yat, that which. Ijyate is offered. Bharat Shresht is named for Arjun, best of the Bharatas. Tam, that. Yajam is sacrifice. Vidhi, no. Rajasam is Rajasic. So that sacrifice offered for fruit and ostentation, know it to be Rajasic, O best of Bharatas. So let's chant it together. Abhisandhaya tu phalam dambhartmapi chevayat ejyate bharata shrestha tam yagyam vidirajasam. So the sattvic sacrifices were desireless or without the fruit of the action, or without concentration on the results. They were performed according to the scriptures. Now, the Rajasic is the sacrifices which are performed in accordance with the scriptures, but they are performed by the person anxious to reach a particular goal. And the particular goal is a selfish goal in case of the Rajasic people. So, to reach a specific goal and to satisfy one's vanity in the community, these are Rajasic sacrifices. So, the Rajasic yajna appears to be sacrificial, but is polluted with egocentric and selfish motives. And most of us actually make sacrifices of this kind in the world. The first thing before you start an activity mostly is that what is in it for me? So, what is the profit for me? From job, we seek pay. From help, if you're helping anyone, you expect someone to give you something in return. What is the fruit? Or or we are showing off. So you will go and donate 50,000 rupees because you expect your name to appear on a placard somewhere or in the newspaper. So, showing off and ostentation. And what are we sacrificing? We are sacrificing our energy, our talent, our time that we spend in serving others, right? So, this is what is the sacrifice. And the same was the sacrifice in the previous verse. But there we were not worried about the fruit of or the result of the action, but we were sacrificing our energy, time, talent, effort, everything we were spending, but not worried about the fruit of the action. The Rajasic sacrifice immediately becomes clouded by egoism, ahankar, damb, ostentation, and of course, naturally, the fruit. Of course, Arjuna is addressed as Bharat Shresht, meaning the best of the Bharatas. Let's move on to verse number 13. विधिहीनसमश्राणम् मन्त्रहीनमदक्षिणम् श्रद्धाविरहितं यज्ञं तामसं परिचक्षते. So, sacrifice contrary to ordinance, in which no food is distributed, which is devoid of holy mantras, no gifts, and no shraddha, is declared tamasic. So, let's take this up word by word. Vidhi hinam is against the vidhi or against the ordinance. Asrisht annam, ann is food, grain. Asrisht annam, in which food is not distributed. Mantrahin, without mantras. Adakshinam, dakshina is the offering you give to the Brahmin or to the people who are performing the yajna for you. Adakshinam becomes without that dakshina, without the gifts. Shraddha virahitam, that means without shraddha, which is devoid of faith. Yagya is sacrifice. Tamas is tamas. Parichakshate, declare or is declared. So, sacrifice contrary to ordinance, in which no food is distributed, which is devoid of the holy mantras, no gifts, and no shraddha or faith, is declared tamasic. So let's chant it together. विधिहीनस्मस्रष्टान्नं मन्त्रहीनमदक्षिणम् श्रद्धाविरहितं यज्ञं तामसं परिचक्षते. So, now that tamasic sacrifice is in front of us, Vidihinam, contrary to spiritual ordinance. So, against the rules and instructions that are given in the Shastras. Srishtanam, where no food is distributed. Now, see, food in our traditional or in our old culture, food was actually the sign of wealth, and that is why in that yajna, if you remember, we bring the food grain, because that was, we didn't really bother about money and all that. Food was the most important thing, and that is what was brought to the common pile in the community for the yajna. So food was symbol of wealth. And in Tamasic Yagya, no wealth, so symbolized by food. It can also be material, of course, so you should give clothes, etc. So nothing is shared with others. So when you say without food, it means no wealth is distributed amongst other people. Mantrahin, so no sacred chants. This is what the literal translation is. But what it implies is that the mantras are for a particular ideal, or a goal. So the mantra that was selected would always be towards that particular goal. So when we say mantraheen, it means lack of an ideal, lack of a goal, or lack of a purpose. And this you can now compare. The Satvik Yajna was also towards a particular goal. The Rajasic was also towards a particular goal. The only thing there was that one was full of ego, and the Satvik Yajna was desireless and without worry for the fruits of action. But they had a goal. The Tamasic Yajna, there is no goal. So it's just an activity. Adakshinam. So, as I explained, that without offering to the priests or to the gurus, the wise people, Guru Dakshina, as you know, in the Indian tradition, is an essential part of a yajna. And even when the guru is teaching or imparting knowledge to a student, the guru has a right to demand Guru Dakshina. And we have so many instances in our scriptures of the guru demanding the Guru Dakshina. And so it is an essential Indian tradition of a yajna, of a sacrifice. It is a mark of respect and reverence on part of the yajna participant towards the person who is giving the who's conducting the yajna or is enabling the yajna, so towards the guru or the priest. So it is a symbol of paying homage and a token of gratitude towards those who help us on our spiritual journey. And Shraddha Virahitam is lack of Shraddha, and Shraddha also maps on to the goal setting. I mean, so lack of consistency of purpose. So lack of goal, path or direction. So such kind of a purposeless, goalless sacrifice, contrary to the scriptures, in which no food is served, no chants are there, no offerings are made to the people helping the yajna, is called tamasic yajna. Okay. Now, so now we have covered the food, we have covered yajna, and we come to tapa, austerities. We are trying to cover all our activities again into these four categories. We'll also go to gifting to tell us how the even I mean, how when you act even without Shraddha, how do we become Rajasic, Sattvic, and Tamasic? This is the aim. This was Arjun's question, right? Now, before we hit Tapa, so Tap is what? Austerity, right? Would anyone like to add something to this? What do we understand by the word Tap? Okay, I'll take it up.
Like single-minded devotion, dedication,
Yeah.
focused on one particular, yeah, sort of object or agenda, what do you say? It's sort of focus and single-minded attention to something, total dedication. Tap.
Absolutely. Yes. So tap is actually it means austerity or complete dedication, like you just said, right? So what are you doing? That means towards one thing, towards whatever your goal is, right? So you are sacrificing all your body and your emotions and any thing which is swaying the mind or tries to take away the mind from that particular activity, you will reject it. And that is tapa. And tap actually means heat. And heat means, in this particular context, it means it gives you the energy to do what? To continue on your path, whatever you have determined for yourself, right? So, and what was yagya actually? Which we just recapped was action done in the spirit of service and sacrifice for a towards a higher goal, right? And of course, we talked about the limited ideals and the absolute ideals, chapter 4, verses 25 to 35. So, tap or austerity is conserving and directing your energy towards that ideal. So, whatever ideal you have set, whether it is, an absolute ideal or a relative ideal, that is what all your actions are dedicated towards that. That is your tap, which is giving you that heat to or energy to work towards that goal of yours or consistency of purpose. And conserving and directing energy for a higher goal is spiritual growth. And our scriptures, this is a bit from the Rig Veda, that without purifying the body through austerity, one cannot reach the final stages of yoga. Yoga here means union with the self, with that supreme reality. Also, I would like to draw your attention and ask you to kindly revise chapter 4, verse 28. that same cycle that I had covered. So we had talked about the Dravya Yajna, where the Ahuti is the material wealth and the kindling of the fire is the recipient's wealth, right? So when you give a check of 10,000 to some organization, your bank balance is reduced by 10,000. The receiving organization's bank balance increases by 10,000. So, right, that is Dravya Yajna. Then we had talked about Tapo Yajna. That was the seventh yajna. So, physical sacrifice. So, ahuti is what? We give up our bodily needs or our comforts. And the kindling of the fire is the recipient's physical benefits. So, you serve the person, so the person is able to derive physical benefits. So, example to bring out this very well is that in case of the Dravya Yajna, suppose a common park had to be cleaned out, you would give money uh, to hire or towards hiring of staff to get the park cleaned. So that was Dravya Yajna. Same park, same park. If you yourself go and help in the cleaning activity, that is Tapo Yajna that we had talked about at the point of time when we were doing chapter 4. And then, of course, we had talked about Yoga Yajna, where you give intellectual faculties to the recipient. So you give away those, so you are able to increase the intellectual wealth of the other person. And the ninth yajna was the Swadhyay Gyan Yajna, where we given our vasanas, or the Ahuti is the vasanas or the unmanifest desires, and what we receive is actually that much closeness to that supreme reality. So this was just I just wanted to bring out these four because they were in one verse and they were presented in the order of subtlety in which the recipient is made more and more self-sufficient. So that was the categories. The Swadhyaya Gyan Yoga was the subtlest and the most strong of the all the four yajnas that we had talked about in that verse. Now, in this chapter, in the current chapter, tap or purification is detailed out at the level of the body, speech, and mind for sattvic austerities. Okay, so Rajasic and Tamasic will deal with it, but to make us understand the sattvic tap or sattvic austerities, the Krishna has divided them into three kinds of austerities at the level of the body, speech, and mind. And this is what we will cover over the next set of verses 14, 15, 16, and 17. So let's start with the last verse for the day, verse number 14. Devadvij Guru Pragyam Pujanam Shochamarjavam Brahmacharyam Ahimsa cha Shariram Tap Uchyate. So the verse translates to worship of gods, twice born, gurus and the wise, and purity, uprightness, celibacy, and non injury are called austerity of the body. Word by word. So it is Dev, Dvij, Guru, Pragya. Now, Dev, it's Deva. Actually, Dev is plural gods. Dvij is twice born. Guru is Guru. Pragya is the wise. Pujanam. So, Dev, Dvij, Guru, Prajya becomes gods, twice born gurus, and the wise. Pujanam, worship of. Shocham is purity. Arjavam is uprightness. Brahmacharyam is celibacy. Ahimsa is non injury or harmlessness. Cha and Shariram of the body. Tap, austerity, Uchyate is called. So, worship of gods, twice born, gurus, and the wise, purity, uprightness, celibacy, and non injury are called austerities of the body. So, let's chant. Devadvij Guru Pragyama Pujanam Shochamarjavam Brahmacharyam Ahimsa cha Shariram Tap Uchyate. So this verse is covering the austerities at the level of the body. Let's take up the first word, Dev Dvij Guru Pragya Pujanam, or worship of gods, twice born, Guru and the wise. Gods, we have been discussing, plural indicates relative goals in the world. So we plant God at every place. So if you want to gain knowledge, Saraswati is there for you, money, Lakshmi ji is there for you. Of course, God being one, that is the absolute ideal. The others are plural, therefore. Twice born. Now, this is an interesting word. That means a person who is born twice. How are you born twice? One is your physical birth. So, when we get out of the womb, all of us have gone through it. We get out of the womb, which is a very small constricted space, and we come into the world and start throwing our arms and our legs around. So, from that constricted space, we are born into this vast world. The second birth refers to when we understand, or a seeker understands, that our limitations are because of our identification with the material layers, or when we open up our mind and our intellect and we realize that all my physical problems or mental problems also, all the limitations suffered by this jivatma as a individual soul, is because of its identification with matter. That is the second birth. So twice born refers to a evolved spiritual seeker. Guru means dispeller of darkness. So all those are teachers. I'm not talking of school teachers, I'm talking about spiritual gurus who remove our ignorance and take us on the path of our enable us on our spiritual journey. Prajya means the wise ones. So they are like the encyclopedias. They have the complete theoretical knowledge. So they know what is written where, and you don't have to keep hunting. You go to such a person to understand what is said for which where. So you should have the question, and they will tell you where is what is written about that particular thing. So they are a storehouse of knowledge. They're equipped with knowledge. And of course, we're talking about the spiritual knowledge, knowledge of the self. So what are the Vedas saying? What is the Gita saying? They will know that for you. All these people help us on our spiritual journey. So they are worshipped by a when we are doing the austerity of the body. Then the other words that come out, and these words are actually, if you will revise your chapters 12 and 13, where we talked about the qualities of the bhaktas and the qualities of the gyani, there's a major overlap here. For example, shocham, purity. This was also mentioned for a bhakta and a gyani. So, Shocham is purity, both external and internal. We understand it at the physical level, so we keep our houses, our environment clean. But at the mental and the intellectual level, we tend to have a lot of cobwebs which accumulate a lot of dust. So, and other material that needs to be cleaned out also. They create a lot of impurity within us. And because of this, pure emotions become impure emotions. So when there is lack of cleanliness, love becomes obsession, jealousy, so on and so forth. And these impurities start covering the purity, the pure reality within all of us. So we should do spring cleaning of our brains also, with the spring cleaning of the almirahs when the season changes, or maybe more frequently. So, a true seeker understands the nature of desires and is careful that they do not multiply, and works towards reducing the vasanas, sublimation of the vasanas, and therefore reduction in desires and attachment, which will naturally follow. And then the self will have the possibility to emerge from within oneself. So, the self is not to be sought actually. All the uncleanliness around it, or uncleanliness of our mind, has to be removed so that self can emerge. Arjavam was simplicity or uprightness, so straightforwardness in thought, speech, and action. This happens when we function from the level of our consciousness. When we go against our conscience, it becomes sin. And again, this inner voice of ours, we have been laying stress on it for a long time, across verses and across chapters, because that conscience of ours is our true connect with the supreme reality. It is telling us what to do and what not to be done, what not to do. When we are simple, of course, and upright, we are without motives. I don't praise someone. I praise someone because I think that someone is looking nice. I don't praise that someone to get something in return. That if I heap a lot of praise, maybe this work of mine will get done. No, we don't have any motive. So, straightforwardness in thought includes absence of deceit, envy, crookedness, etc. In speech, absence of taunt, gossip, ornamentation, flowery language, and in living, in action, it means simple living, simple behavior, straightforward behavior. So, it is by following our conscience and our convictions, our value system, we lead upright, simple, truthful lives. Brahmacharya, celibacy, is self control. So we learn to control our body and, of course, consequently, sensual indulgences, and channelize it towards the supreme reality, which is the highest goal. Now, it is self control and not self denial. So if we want it, then we should do it. We should not deny ourselves, because Bhagavad Gita also has already said that then you are a hypocrite. If you are self denying and saying that you have controlled yourself, it is hypocrisy. You are very much seeking that particular object or wealth, and you're just pretending you're not doing it, so you are actually a hypocrite. So celibacy or brahmacharya involves our intelligent control or intellect's control over the mind and the body. Ahimsa is non-injury or harmlessness. That means, and it has to be practiced at all levels: body, mind, and intellect. So no harm at the physical, mental, emotional, and intellectual levels. Also at the thought level, so maintaining peace and harmony with the world. So physically you're not hurting someone, but mentally you're saying a lot of negative things to a person, is not a hinsa, it's a lot of hinsa. So a non-injurious attitude towards life and creation. So when we practice all these attributes of arjavam, okay, let me start: purity, uprightness, celibacy, harmlessness, then these are attributes of the Sharirik Tap. And normal, and of course, you will worship all those people who take you or encourage you on that path or help you on your path. Now, once again, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that tap is not straining or torturing the body. In this chapter itself, verses number 5 and 6, I will just read them out. That those who practice terrible austerity, not enjoined by the scriptures, with hypocrisy and egoism, possessed by the power of lust and attachment, torturing the elements in the body senseless, and even me embodied within, know them to be of demonic resolve. So, with that, we conclude our today's session.